Hi there, and welcome to the What's New webinar, where we're going to look at the new features that are being released in Mission Control with the Summer 15 launch, which will be available from the App Exchange on Monday, the 10th of August 2015. So this Summer 15 release is by far our largest release that we've ever done since releasing the original product. So we're going to take you through some of the various features. And what we're going to do is jump straight into probably the biggest feature that we've put into Mission Control so far is the profit and loss management. So up until now, we've been able to in Mission Control, you've only had the ability to track the revenue for a project. You were able to identify the value of an hour's effort on the project. So, for example, if we were doing an hour, of work, we would be able to identify that had accrued a certain amount of revenue. Very much in a time and materials basis. Mission Control now has the ability to track both revenue and costs, and in turn what we're able to do is capture the profit and loss at the action, milestone and project level. So as part of what we're calling the profit and loss management feature, there are a number of different enhancements that I just want to run you through. The first one is the hours per day. Previously, everything was based on you working on an 8-hour day basis. What you're able to do now is actually specify how many hours you work per day. So you can do that. You can set a default setting in the project automation section of the Mission Control console. So you can see here I've got this one set to 7.5 hours per day. But also at the individual project level, you can specify that. So if we go and create a brand new project, it will pick up this default hours per day value. But in some instances, you might be working 5 hours a day or 8 hours a day, or even bad luck if you are, but 10 hours a day. So what that will do is let you actually identify, a more specific timing for your projects. So the other main feature around the profit and loss management is the billable and cost rates. So right now, what we've done so far is, as I say, we've been able to track the revenue. What you're able to now do is actually track the revenue and the cost of a project. So you're able to specify the billing rate and the cost rate for each project. So if I just take a quick look at a project that I've already got in the system. So you can see here that I've got a project set up. I now have a billing day rate and I've got a cost day rate. So you can see here I've chosen to use the standard day rate for the billing and the standard day rate for the cost rate. So I've specified my billing day rate of 1,500 and I've specified my cost rate of 1,000. So underneath that, you can see it's working out my hourly rates for the two values as well. So the standard, using the standard option will allow us to specify the billing hourly rate and the cost hourly rate on the actual project. These are calculated based on the billing day rate and the cost day rate values that you specify based on the hours per day as well. So you can see here on this project, I've specified that we're working 8 hours for the day, per day. So the other option obviously is the role-based option, and that will use the billing hourly rates and the cost hourly rates of the individual role records that are being assigned to the project. So you can get to those via the roles tab, and you'll be able to you'll see that there are now fields for both the billing rate and the cost rate. So I've got my billable hourly rate and my cost hourly rate. So when logging hours against a project, we now have the ability to specify, at the scheduled level, the completed level, and the remaining level. We can now specify billable and non-billable hours. So if I just scroll down here, you'll be able to see that we've got 32 hours of billable work scheduled and 3 hours of non-billable work scheduled. So in total, we've got 35 hours of work to do on the project, 32 of which we'll be generating revenue for. So as I say, when logging hours against a project, the hours completed billable will accrue when the non-billable indicator on the time log is false. Where it's set to true, the time will be attributed to the hours completed non-billable field. So there are now currency fields that track the billable and the cost values for the project as well. So this is where we're able to specify, actually capture our profit and loss. So the hours will be taken into account for the cost calculation regardless of whether they are billable or non-billable, and only the hours that are considered billable will be calculated into the billable value. The examples, so obviously the examples that we're talking about, let's say we've got someone who's developing a website and they're assigned as the action owner of an action on a project. The action will require the person to carry out both billable and non-billable work to deliver the action. The following parameters that we're using, we've got a scenario where he's working 8 hours per day, and we're using the standard day rate for the billable rate and the standard for the cost rate. So in the scenario where maybe his billable day rate is $1,200 and his hourly billable rate would be $150 and his cost day rate is $800 and therefore his cost hourly rate would be $100 per hour. What this means is that for any hour that we do that is billable, we're going to generate $150 worth of revenue towards that project, and then for every hour that we work on that project, it will incur a $100 cost, which is obviously, we're putting that in the system to cover things like salary and overheads and so on. So in the scenario where someone actually comes along and they log three hours that are billable and 1 hour that is non-billable, we've got a total hours completed of 4 hours. So we've got our three completed hours that are billable at the hourly rate of 150. That allows us to actually generate $450 worth of revenue for the project. But obviously we've also actually incurred 4 hours worth of costs. Now our hourly cost rate was $100, therefore 4 times 1 is 400, and our profit and loss for that action is $50. So you can see there that we've now got, as well as having the hours scheduled that are billable and non-billable, that goes down for the completed and remaining and the forecast. If you scroll down, we've got the profit and loss section here as well. So translating those those hours into costs, we can see that we've got our 32 hours, which is at the 187.50 for this project, is giving us hours scheduled value of 6,000, and the cost value is 4,375. So our anticipated profit and loss based on the scheduled hours would be 1,625. And you can see as we're moving through the project and we're logging time, we've actually so far generated $1,031 worth of billable revenue, and we've incurred $781 of cost. Therefore, we've got our $250 profit and loss. So we've also added in a few validation rules now that will help you around the options of making sure that your billable and cost values are kept in line. So there's a new validation rule that's been included that will prevent users from entering a number greater than 0 in the hours scheduled billable field of the time log if the non-billable indicator is true. Now, obviously, we're not expecting everyone to want to use this validation rule, so out of the box it will actually be inactive. But if you want to actually activate the rule, you simply go to Setup, then you click on the Create link, and then you navigate to Objects. And then if you go to the Action object, and if you scroll down to the validation rules, you will see that there is a validation rule called billable hours cannot be entered. So you simply click on Edit, and then you set the active button, active checkbox to true, and then you'll save that. And then what that will do is prevent anyone from logging time that is billable against a non-billable action. So I mentioned earlier that we've got a fixed price. We've got a new field now called billing type, and in this scenario on this project, we've specified it as a fixed price project. So you now have the ability to specify whether it's fixed price or time and materials, and there's ultimately no fundamental difference to the way the calculations will work. However, on a fixed price project, you may want to restrict the number of billable hours that are being completed to ensure they don't actually exceed the number of billable hours that have been scheduled. So that's where we're controlling. So we might, our fixed price project, we might be getting a certain amount of money to deliver the project. Therefore, we would not want our billable hours completed to exceed our billable hours that have been scheduled. So there's another validation rule that's been added. Again, it's inactive out of the box, but it will be there for you to activate should you want that. And you would follow the same steps to activate that. But this time it's actually on the time log. So what it will do is prevent the user from logging time if it will actually push the completed billable hours over the scheduled billable hours. So on to the next feature that we've added in as part of the profit and loss management is the ability to actually specify whether a project is eligible for overtime. So as we can do that at both the billable rate and the cost rate. So you can see here that we've got the ability to say whether from a billable perspective overtime is allowed on the project, and if it is allowed, what the ratio would be. So you can see here that I'm saying yes from a billable perspective, this project is eligible for overtime, and it would be at a time and a half. So likewise, over on the right hand side there, you can see the overtime is allowed from a cost perspective as well, but from an internal costs, we're actually only providing time and a quarter. So the individual calculations will be specified. So when logging time, the user will be able to specify whether or not the time that they're actually logging is overtime. And if the fields have been set, the billable and cost values for the project will calculate based on hours times the overtime ratio times the hourly rate. So we'll come into some enhancements that have been made around the various methods of logging time, and we'll go into a bit more detail on the overtime then. So another feature that's been added in at the request of a client is so ultimately so far you've been able to specify your calculations on a project using a standard day rate, or you could use the role-based rate. So if I just jump into the details of this project, you can see here I'm using the standard rate, but I could also choose to use the role-based rate. So the role-based is where it takes the values from the individual roles that are working on the project. What we've also added in is the ability to actually manage rates for individual roles at an individual project level. So you're now going to be able to specify hourly rates per role, per project, and you do that using the manage rates feature here. So if I click on that, you'll see that this opens up, and the recommendation is that you build this out prior to creating any actions on a project. So you can just add in additional roles by looking them up and clicking on the add additional role button. So what you're able to do is specify the billable hourly rate and the cost hourly rate for this person on this project. So, for example, when we're working on a project, the hourly rates for a resource may be $150 billable and $100 costs. However, for this individual project, we've needed to offer a discount, and therefore what we're going to do is drop that person's rates down to $120 billable and maybe $80 cost. So we would simply come in and put the values in, like this, click on the save rates, and then that would actually apply those rates against any time that is assigned to Chris in this situation. For example, if Colin and Emma are both going to be using their core standard rates, we just choose to leave these fields blank, and that will pick up their role rates. Okay, so ultimately everything we've gone over there will allow us, as I say, going back to the project overview. All of those new features bring us to a situation where, when we're looking at the project, we can see our details around the billable section, we can see our details around the cost section, and then we're able to specify both billable and non-billable hours. And we're also able to get the billable revenue that's being generated from the project, the costs that are being incurred by the project, and therefore the profit and loss situation as well. So that's available at the project level. It's also available at the individual milestone and action level as well. Okay, so another new feature that has been that's been added in at the request of a client is a new expense management object. So previously, the only way of logging expenses was on an individual time log record, and that was being logged against a specific action. Obviously, not everyone logs expenses at an individual action level. So, a few clients have requested the ability to just actually log expenses at a project level. So, there's a couple of new fields being added into the role record. So if I just jump through into a role record, and I'll show you there, we've got a new field called mileage rate, and we've got a new field called expense approver. So the mileage rate will be applied to the calculation whenever this person is logging expenses that are relevant to mileage, and any expenses that are submitted for approval will be added to the list for, in this situation, Chris to approve. So what we've actually added in is a brand new object called expenses, and what we're able to do is come along and add create, just using standard user interface, look up a project. We're able to specify the project, and we're able to specify who has incurred the expenses. So in this instance, I'm actually going to say it was Chris that had incurred the expense, because I'm actually specified as Chris's approver. So we'll be able to see what happens in that situation. So I'm saying on the 7th of August, Chris incurred some accommodation expenses, and we can specify the amount. So in the instance where we're specifying the amount or the distance, we can't specify both. So there's a validation rule that says you can only specify the distance or the amount. And there's a formula field that determines whether, if this field has a value in it, it will basically take this value times the mileage rate specified on this person's roll rate, or it will take the value that you're specifying manually here. So I can log my expenses. I can keep them as pending until I'm ready to submit them for approval. And once I am ready, I can just mark them as submitted. And then once that, what happens there is that then goes into a dynamic list view for the approver to look at. So if I actually go back to the expenses home tab, you'll see we've got a list view here called expenses requiring my approval. Now that will dynamically display any expense records where your role record is the approver. So if I click on go there, we'll see the expense record that we've just logged for Chris for the accommodation. So using the using standard inline editing on list views, I could actually click both of these and just go through and set them both as approved. So they only get the value of the expenses only actually go through to the project once the once the status has been set to approved. So if I just look at the project there, you can see we've got a field called anticipated project expenses. Now this is just a manually entered currency field that gets calculated in line with the actual costs of the project as well. Over on the right hand side, you can see here that this is actually calculating the actual expenses that are being logged and have been approved against the project. So if we scroll down, we'll see that there are 2 expenses here. Both of them are approved and they're totaling $300. So you're also able to actually log that through Salesforce One as well. So if you actually go, and you can also, in any of these expense records, you could go through and actually you could actually use the standard notes and attachments to attach a copy of the receipt. So you're able to do the same thing using Salesforce One. You're able to actually load up the, create a new expense, save that, and then also actually push an expense receipt through using the file upload. So one of the other features that we've enhanced within Mission Control for this release is the scheduler. I'll just try and find the right page. So right now, your scheduler would look something like this. You're looking at a 2-week window where you're able to look at the timeline of all of your different resources. So there's a number of different features we've added into this to really enhance the experience of using it as a valuable tool to help your resource capacity planning. So there's a few different things that have been added. The main one is the timeline view. So you can now extend this. Currently in your existing version, it's a 2-week window. What you can actually do is change this from anything from a 1-week right up to a 12-week window just by clicking on this slider here. So I'm now able to look at my team, and I'm able to look at the allocation of their resource right over a 12-week period. So this is a persistent value as well. So if I specifically like to be looking at a 6-week window, every time the next time if I navigate away from this page and come back, that will actually remain set to 6 as well. So there's another thing that we've added in is the ability to load in standard Salesforce tasks and events. So up in the right hand corner here, you'll see that we can click on the show tasks checkbox and the show events checkboxes as well. Now they will load in your standard Salesforce tasks and events linked to the individual user records of these roles. So they're read-only, but they don't impact the role's allocation. But being able to view these tasks and events in line with the mission control actions will provide you with fuller insight into each person's capability. So as I say, to load the tasks and/or the events into the scheduler, you simply check the checkboxes, and again, these are persistent values. So if you navigate away and you come back, they will remain set to true. So we've also added in some enhanced filtering options here as well. So you can now look at particular roles. If you're only wanting to look at a few different people, you can do that, or you can perform a keyword search here as well. So you're able to actually just add in a specific word, and that will search any of the actions. The other thing is obviously we've added in a bit more of functionality here, but it's taken up some of the screen space. So to make sure we allow you to have as much visibility around all of the around the scheduler, we've actually wrapped all of these settings into a collapsible tab. So if you now click on the scheduler settings tab, you'll see that it actually folds that away, so it gives you more access and more visibility across the scheduler. And if you want to make some adjustments, you just click on it once more and it shows you again. Now, obviously, going back to some of the changes that we've made around the billable and non-billable functionality within the system, we've actually added in we've made some major changes to the timesheet as well. So you'll see that this has changed somewhat. Now, what we've done is moved the milestone from its own column. It's now sitting underneath the project. So we've been able to have more space to pull in some additional information for you. So you'll see here next to each action, next to the project, the milestone, and the action, you've now got a view link. Now, if you click on that, that will open up in a new window and take you straight through to the relevant record, whether it's the action, the milestone, or the project that you've clicked on. So you still get the ability to mark an action as complete, but you now get the option to log both billable and non-billable time. So you can see the top row for this build code action is the billable stuff, and then the second row down is the non-billable. So I'm able to specify here that I've done 1 hour billable and I might have done 1 hour non-billable as well. So the additional information that we're pulling in, we can see our scheduled hours for our scheduled billable hours, our completed billable hours, and our remaining, and we get the same values here for the non-billable. So we've also got the ability, so we already had the ability, if we double click into one of these, we have the ability to add notes to that time log, but we've now also got the ability to specify whether that's overtime. So if I tick that box and the project has been set up to be eligible for overtime, my 1 hour will be actually logged at the overtime ratio that is specified on that project. So one of the other features that we've included is the ability to show overdue actions. So right now, in your current version of Mission Control, your timesheet loads any actions that are assigned to you this week. So what we're able to do now is it also include any actions that may be assigned to you that have not been completed yet, but fall on a date prior to this week. So it gives you a fuller list of everything that you might need to be working on. Now, we've also actually added in the ability to specify whether a project, a milestone, or an action should be excluded from a timesheet as well. So if we just take a quick look at an action, the same fields exist at the milestone and the project level as well. So, for example, you might be wanting to have you might have like a bunch of actions, all of which need to be done for the project, but you only want the people to be logging time against one master action. So you could come along and specify on the individual actions that they need to be excluded from the timesheet. So you simply do that by checking that box there, and then that will actually make sure that this action is no longer visible on the timesheet. So looking at the time logger, so obviously I've just shown you the timesheet there. We've also got the time logger. Now the time logger is accessible via the sidebar like you can see here, and it's also accessible via Salesforce One as well. So we've obviously got the ability to specify whether it's non-billable, whether it's overtime, but another new feature that we've put in is the ability to track time. So right now you've already got the ability to come along and select a project, a milestone, an action, and you can specify how many hours you've been working. So you can say, okay, well, I've just done 3 hours on this project. But what you're able to do now is actually start tracking time. So you can actually select your project. So if I just quickly go through, I select a project, I'll select a milestone, and I'll select the relevant action. So what I can do is actually start tracking time now. So by clicking that button, what I'm saying is, as of right now, I'm actually working on this action. So I'm going to go away, I'm going to do my work, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to then stop tracking that time. So what this allows me to do is actually get a very accurate time log for the amount of work that I've just done. So you can now see that that's changed. It's now showing me that I'm tracking time, and I started tracking that time on this date and time, and so far it's 0 minutes. So if I go away, I do some work, I come back, what I would end up doing there is actually coming back and clicking the stop tracking time, and that will then allow me to go through and so let's say I come back in 10 minutes time, I click that button, and that will go through and log a time log for 10 minutes work. So you're also, as I say, you're also able to do that via the Salesforce One mobile app, and we've changed the location of that to. I'm just going to pull that up onto my mobile phone. If you bear with me a moment. So I'm just pulling this up to show you the time logger. So you can see here, previously we used to access the time logger from this section here. It's now available straight from the chatter feed. So what you're able to do is click on the log time link down the bottom of the screen here. So just down the bottom there, you can click on log time, and that will open up the time logger. So you can see there that we've got the page, and we've got all of the features that we've also got available in the sidebar component. So if I remember which action I was working on, so I'm able to just specify the action, and I can do the exact same functionality of logging time or starting to track time. So once I've done that, I can just click on close and go back. So they're the main enhancements. Some of the other things that we've added in just to actually sort of provide a bit more of an enhanced user experience is on the Gantt chart. We actually have the ability now to specify the Gantt chart display unit. So we're able to specify here whether we want to look at that as a day unit or a month or a week, sorry. So I can just specify that as a day, a week, or a month, and based on the, I'll just switch that over to a week just to show you the difference. So there's a few things we've done to the Gantt chart. So if I just jump into the project overview page, and I'll show you those changes. So one of the things that we got some feedback on was there was the bars were actually quite big. So we've actually made them smaller to try and give you a bit more visibility on the screen. So you can see here that they've, all of these have changed size a bit. They've become a bit smaller. So we've also added in a few new features. We've added in a few more columns, sorry. So we've added in the owner, so that's visible on the Gantt chart, as is the end date as well. So you just got a bit more information there. So you can see, because I specified the week display unit, I get my day, but I also get my week up here as well. So one of the other things that we've added in is the ability to filter the export. So one of the things is obviously, clients can be working on a project that can be spanning months or even years, and exporting a PDF as, on a landscape, exporting the Gantt chart as a landscaped PDF was actually making it very hard to read. So what we've added in now is the ability to apply a filter to the export. So let's say I've got a project that's running for the entire year, but I only want to print out the Gantt chart for the first quarter. So I'd actually be able to specify a start date and an end date of what I want to apply to that Gantt chart. So I can apply my range. I can click on Create PDF, and that will only generate the PDF for the actions within that specific date range. Another feature that we've added in is actually to the Burndown chart. So you can, which is just above the Gantt chart here. So we've now added in a today indicator on the. So obviously we had our existing Burndown chart that was showing us our actual and our ideal execution, and just to give us an indication of where we're sitting on that project. So you can see, really, based on this, we're running behind schedule on this project. So there's a very small enhancement there. Also I'll just shut down some of these windows. On the whiteboard, we've added in the ability to actually come through and view the hours remaining. So you can see here we've got hours remaining for each column. So if I filter that down to a few specific projects, I'm able to filter that, and the hours remaining will actually change. So I can look specifically very quickly and say, okay, based on these projects, or whatever I'm looking at, this person, I can see we've got 85 hours remaining in planned. I've got 28 hours remaining in progress. So we also have the ability to perform a keyword search. So again, similar to the scheduler feature, you're able to just come along, search a specific keyword. So if I might want to just search design, that will click on go, and that will filter that down to only show actions that are relevant to design. And again, from the ability to log time, what we're able to do is also just on the time logger from the whiteboard is specify whether it's overtime or not. Okay, that pretty much covers all of the features that are being released in Mission Control in summer 15. So the next thing really for you guys is to actually perform your upgrade. So you'll have, if you're watching this webinar, you'll have already been given the release notes. So the release notes include instructions on how to upgrade. It's a very simple process, and obviously once you're upgraded on the new version, you'll be able to take advantage of all these new features. And certainly, if you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at support@aprica.com.au, and we'll certainly get back in touch with you and help you out. I hope you do actually enjoy the new features. We're certainly excited by them all, and looking forward to the enhanced experience that we're going to get from using Mission Control ourselves, and we hope you do too. As I say, if you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you. Bye.